Welcome to What Have You.
I'm Becca Merkel.
And I'm Rachel Jankovic, and here we are. Once again, upon a Thursday.
Later in the day.
Hot pancakes.
We are cutting it
Podcast.
even closer today.
Yep.
So, and we forgot to turn
And
the
Becca's
ringers
getting
off.
texts.
The ringers.
She's not really committed to this podcast.
Yeah, it's off now. I turned it off. Gosh.
Yes.
We've
So
got
anyways, Becca, what have you been up to?
so many reckless things that I've been up to. Well, we took our boat out.
Oh my word, that's right. The Merkles
first
have gone
time.
Merkling.
The thing is in our broader family, Merkel has become a verb.
Yeah, they Merkled it.
Yeah.
We say that it's totally Merkling it.
Or somebody, even non-Merkles will say, well, we really Merkled that one. And Merkling it can mean any number of things, but it usually means, I don't know, what does it mean? Getting yourself into predicaments
It just means
that are reckless in the
like,
extreme.
Like, for instance, if one evening at 10:30 we decided to remodel, and so we just took out some, like the kitchen,
yeah.
then that would be Merkling it. You don't have to have a plan. You just have to want to do it.
That's not true. We always feel like we have a plan.
No, you do. But I think what I'm saying is not necessarily on a timetable or on a. It's just or if you're really Merkling it, you might get both of your cars stuck in the mud in a field.
Oh my word, we did that.
Yeah. Or you might end up somewhere with, a broken down boat. Specifically, why don't you tell this story?
Well, we drove up. We've got gorgeous lakes around here in northern Idaho. So we took the boat, first time out after the winter. And Coeur d'Alene Lake, how long is it?
This boat has been a real sponsor of Merkling events.
The problem is, last year it wasn't. Last year it was pretty decent.
It had like a year off of Merkling real hard.
Last year it was decent, I think, because we were too busy remodeling the house to take it out anywhere. But this year, we took it out, and Coeur d'Alene Lake is where we went, and it's a very big lake. So we drove up. It's like an hour drive away, and then we went across the lake, which was not very far. It's just a couple miles to the mouth of a river, and then went up the river. And the boat is being awesome.
It's
totally
just Spokane
great.
River, right?
Spokane River. We were trying to get up to another lake. That was the goal.
Rock Lake? Is that what it is?
No, Killarney. But anyway, so we're trying to get up there. We get, I don't know, I want to say it was maybe 15 miles, but it's hard to guess when you're going on a boat. So maybe it was not that far. But it was a long ways up the chute.
They sojourned up the river.
It was a beautiful day, and I'd packed food, and it was just like a really nice little time. And then the boat starts making a noise, and then the boat just stops, just turns off. And
stopped boat would be a sign of Merkling it.
Literally, we are up a creek without a paddle. And so we
no paddle? You don't even have an oar in your boat?
No.
I bet you do.
It's a ski boat. Why?
But we have an oar in ours.
Well, we don't have one. We had one water ski.
Unprepared for
No, we didn't. I'm sure we had two water skis. But anyway, the point is that there we are, and it is not a swift moving river. It is a real lazy river, and a gorgeous one. It's really pretty, but
the sightseeing from a dead boat is fabulous.
Once your boat stops, it's not like you're going to quickly flow back to where you came from.
Well, and it's not a heavily populated river.
No, it was...
No, it's not like being on a river that is houses. It's not like pull into the nearest dock and ask for help.
It's like meadows on either side. Yeah. There's mountains. There's...
nature preserves.
Nature. There's a lot of nature. In the end, what happens is after we eat our foods and we're still sitting there, and we're basically still looking at the same bush as when we started lunch. So it's like, we're going to have
your
to
boat
take
died
action.
And then you had lunch first?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're like, let's just picnic.
First is like, maybe we just need to give it a minute, who knows?
Oh, right. Let it catch its breath.
Let it take itself, less seriously, and then we'll see how it does.
Okay, right.
Anyway, so then it's like, no, we're going to have to do something now. So Ben and Judah, who is 12, they swim to the shore, leaving the rest of us in the boat, right? And So it was really awesome. Ben swimming to shore with his shoes and his shirt in a grocery bag held above his head, so that he can put his shoes on when he gets to shore. So we do that, and we separate then, because there they went. We don't know what their plan is. We continue to float.
Do you have cell service?
No, not a lick of cell service. So
this is Idaho.
This is Idaho, and we're way up in the Tules of the mountains. And we just floated for, I want to say maybe an hour and a half without seeing them again. And we're having a blast of a time. I mean, it was great. And every so often we'd have to shove off the bank with the water ski. And so eventually Ben and Judah turned back up in a extremely hilarious boat with two guys.
Was it the duck hunting boat?
It's a duck hunting boat. The guy is a logger with the huge wide red suspenders.
Yeah, ideal. That is the person you were hoping to find.
It's the man you want in a time like this with a perfectly awesome duck hunting boat. Mm-hmm. So they tried various things on the engine. They were going to hotwire it, but then they couldn't reach the thing. It wasn't the battery. We tried several batteries. Anyway, after boat maintenance on a calm river, they had to tow us. And they towed us down to this other little lake that you access by means of a tiny channel that looks like it's like a little stream. And so the fact that they were towing us down this windy channel, and then you go under a bridge that you can't even believe. We had to we have a rack on top of the boat. We had to take that off.
A wakeboard thing?
Yeah, like the tall, whatever it is. Anyway, we had to take it off. And then we are like sitting in the boat and hand over handing under this little concrete bridge in order to get into the lake. And then suddenly there we are in a beautiful, huge, gorgeous lake. And anyway, suffice it to say, now we're on the wrong side of the lake. Our car is on the other side of the lake. Anyway, the wonderful logger, he went home, he borrowed his dad's minivan. He came back, picked us up, drove us to the nearest town. He knew right where we could pull over to get cell service. So at the top of a hill, he pulls over and we call Ben's mom, who drives up to pick us up. Then we have to drive all the way around the lake to the other side to get her car. Drive all the way back around the lake again to get the boat, and then drive home. So we got home at like 1:30 in the morning with a dead boat, and Ben didn't have any more shoes.
Did you haul your boat back?
We hauled it.
Got your boat out of the water.
We got our boat home that night. But
where were Ben's shoes?
Where were Ben's shoes? It was when we went back to the lake in the deep darkness, and we were trying to remember, like, where is our boat even? Like,
oh, my word, yeah.
So we found it eventually, and then Ben and I, because we'd sent the kids home with his mother. And so it was Ben and I trying to load a dead boat in the pitch blackness in a mountain lake where there's no lights or anything.
It sounds really chill to me.
So
I don't know why this kind of behavior needs its own verb, but it is specifically Merkling.
This is what Merkling looks like. It is what
Merkling is for.
And so anyway, Ben is doing the thing of like running into the water and to work with the boat, and then having to run back in the car and back it up a little bit further.
Didn't you have a Merkling moment with your boat where the pad that the boat rests on just floated away while you're trying to load the dead boat onto the trailer, and it just sort of leaves?
Yeah,
like, part of our trailer just floated off.
Just floated away. It's like that couldn't possibly happen.
I have to say, when we take our boat down in the river south of us, not to the lake up north, but the Snake River.
Yeah.
And down there, there is something it's so beautiful and it is so quiet, but every once in a while when we're like a little late on getting out, I start to be sweating bullets because it's like getting dark. There is no cell service for a very long way. No. And so if
other boats are not necessarly going to come
probably
past.
Not at that point. Yeah. No, because further down it's a dam. So it's really only only like business, like the grain. What is that? What are those called? The big freighters full of grain, might go by or stuff, but it doesn't seem like the best place to get lost. No. But we risk it. We still love it.
But see, you're not Merkles, so I feel like
if we were Merkles, we would not be afraid. We would just we would just do it.
But the thing, anyway, so Ben, in the dark of the night, trying to load the boat, he's jumping in and out of the water, backing the trailer a little bit further, and then we finally get it. We're like high-fiving. We're on the road back, and Ben's like, oh, my shoes, and somewhere.
So anywhere on the roof of the car?
No, they were just back at the lake. He'd just taken them off and left them there, and I was like, you know what?
cost of
Do we
Brooklyn.
care
It's the
at
cost.
all?
It's the cost
No,
of
we
Brooklyn,
care
yeah.
not even a bit. So we're gonna just start over with the shoes, and yeah. So
So
I
funny.
did that over the weekend, and then yesterday I bought a recklessly huge piece of furniture that.
My word, it's not reckless, but it's enormous
reckless.
and fab.
It is. We have sheetrockers coming. I was supposed to be emptying out the rooms.
And you were like, what should I do today? But locate
Yeah.
and source a marble top buffet of power.
huge
from the
It's gotta
1800s.
Be, yeah, it's like 19th century. It's Bavarian. It has a marble top and a
It is
ridiculously.
pretty busy wizzy.
It is over the top carved wood shenanigans.
It is full of beans.
And
that
I
one.
don't know what possessed me to be like, I must buy this immediately with the money I had saved up for something totally different.
Well,
And so I did. I bought it.
these
and,
things come upon you.
it came
It was a
home.
one-time only offer.
and so not only are we trying to get the house ready for sheetrockers to show up, I'm also trying to move in a like 9-foot tall antique thing, which I, yeah.
Hutch, but I told her
It's pretty-
since she sent me her
it's pretty
sheetrockers, I
groovy.
was like, you know, if there was ever a piece of furniture that looked like it's done time under the Holland covers, this is it.
true. It's
It
true.
can do a few more
Except
decades
for
under the Holland
You
covers.
forget how we remodel, because Holland covers or tarps or plastic in doorways never really enter into it. You know, I always have good intentions.
and neither do the paint clothes.
Nope, not paint clothes.
Just-
So,
Yeah, that's all right.
but I'm hoping that like a week from now, I will have walls and it will be so first world in my
It's gonna be
living room.
amazing.
It actually is going to be pretty, I think, when we're
excited for
done.
you.
But it's a lot of shenanigans that this house requires of me. So that's what I've been doing.
Nice.
Getting stuck in
You've been
rivers
doing
and buying
more.
carved
You've been doing
Bavarian
more than I
hutches.
have. I had a fun experience. So I have this kind of mid-century modern, not Bavarian,
No.
1800s, but
I feel like that.
I
is
have
a-
this funny mid-century little hutch that was a very ugly brown with tinted sliding windows on part of it. I think they were tinted, or maybe they were just tinted in spirit because I hated them so hard. But I bought it at a yard sale years ago when we had the shop. I used it in the shop, but I painted it white, and that's what I keep all my cookbooks on and stuff. Well, it has this perfect size little cabinet at the bottom, on the bottom right, that fits my KitchenAid, and I have a big KitchenAid, so
Yeah.
my KitchenAid has never fit on a countertop anywhere because it is taller than all of the clearance in the
cabinets.
cupboard.
Yeah.
And so I've always kept it in there. It's just like an ideal little place for it. But it's also an easy open cupboard, and it's also on the corner right next to our garbage can.
It's right. Also,
So when I realized that Moses had thrown away my KitchenAid attachments, it was already too far gone to get them back. Never more shall they
Yeah.
return. The dough hook and the whisk. But the beater bar, I thought I lost all of them. I thought they were all gone, and I was like, no! And we searched everywhere in the house. Like, you know,
Yeah.
could he have taken these to the dress-ups? But,
Yeah.
but given his approach to the garbage, we were pretty confident that that must have been where they went. It's just
Yeah.
too close. Maybe I'll happen upon them someday, but I'm 99%
you'll find
sure.
them probably in the.
99% sure
Really?
those went to the garbage. Yeah. So I was like, I found somebody put the beater bar away in the wrong place, so it was not in there.
Oh,
So
lucky
glory
save.
days that I
Yeah.
still have the beater bar. So, but the funny thing is, my whole experience with that KitchenAid, I don't care very much about the dough hook. I'm not real whizzed up about the dough hook.
Right.
But since losing it, I have needed that thing. Like, I feel like on a daily basis.
Why? For why?
I've been making bagels, but it just keeps coming up. Like, the moment when I would change from the beater bar to
Sure.
the dough hook keeps coming up. Like,
Yeah,
I need it
okay.
to knead the dough for a while, but now it's not. It's not working.
Sure.
Because on the beater bar, if it's a stiff enough dough, it just blobs on it. It's not working it around.
Yeah.
It's just blobbed. So it just keeps being on my mind. Well, I was making myself laugh with this since it got thrown away. Now I want it. You know, like you
Yeah.
never cared when you had it, Rachel, but now that
No.
you lose it. So I post this on Facebook, and immediately a friend comments, I have one I never use if it fits your model. And I'm like, well, what? Like, so I said I have a professional 6 or whatever. She's like, yeah, that's the right. Like, so this is Valerie giving me her
That's
dough hook.
awesome.
And I was like, what? Well, then I get a comment from another friend saying I have an extra one. I was like, Are you serious? Why does everyone have bonus dough hooks all over the place? Well, then that was Kat, my friend. And she was going to pick up a board game that I was giving them that was on my front porch. Anyways, I texted her, said, sorry, Valerie already answered, whatever. Then she says she actually has the whisk, an extra whisk one, which I did not put in my Facebook status, but which I was also missing. So she's bringing me that. And then Valerie says... Valerie's giving me her dough hook and she needs a beater bar, and then Kat had an extra beater bar for her. So we basically did the great crowdsource the KitchenAid attachments and we spread it all out. Kat got nothing except for Goodwill and a board game.
Yeah.
That's what she got out of it. Valerie and I, though, scored big on the KitchenAid attachments.
No joke.
But this is not an important anecdote, except for it reminded me of something that I wanted to talk about, which is that I think that sometimes women, I just think this is an interesting topic of conversation. I told my husband recently that I was thinking about how blessed we are to be living in a community where there are so many professional housewives, wives, and mothers. And when I say professional, I'm not talking about working outside the home, although many of them do that in various capacities also. Many of them are involved in all kinds of other things. But knowing so many women who would be good at other jobs. Right. Like who are educated, who are self-disciplined, who are interesting, driven women. Yeah. Who have chosen to be at home with their children or throw themselves without worry for their reputation into menu planning or... who are like that this is this striking. Environment. No, it's very shocking.
And it's so powerful.
Yes, and this is what I think, and I know many of our listeners probably live in places where that sounds like, are you joking? That's so idyllic that there would be even someone who's kind of on the same page with you. And I understand that, except for here you are listening to this podcast. This is some community. There is, I don't want this to be discouraging. I want it to be encouraging at looking at things that can happen over time as women do this. Because what happens is, if women are not being competitive, that's a real ugly problem when it gets that way. Yeah. But the amount of times that I have had a friend text me a recipe or something that was like, you've got to try this, or, oh my word, I didn't realize doing this would be so feasible, or messaging with someone about how she's making sourdough bagels into her regular routine, or people who are challenging themselves to continue to like sourdough bread is a craze right now, the wild yeast, because people make it for their friends and then their friends are like, tell me how you did this, and then they're all trying it and passing it on like
basically that. It raises the bar for everybody when women throw themselves into stuff.
Yes,
because it's so contagious when women...
It's contagious because one person makes a beautiful home and then other people are like, okay, I want to do this. Like, I want to work on this. Or, I can't believe that awesome meal that we had at their house. Or, she told me it's actually not hard to knit your family Christmas stockings.
Yeah, or look at your yard. Look at how pretty that is.
No, don't look at my yard. Don't look at my yard.
Well, that garbage can right there.
We're sitting in front of my house. Yeah, Shadrach. There's a metal garbage can upside down in my front yard that Shadrach was actually beating the drums on that like it was a timpani earlier today. It actually worked really well for that.
Like somebody who's amazing at their gardening, or somebody who's good at decorating, somebody who's good at orchestrating the multi-child logistics.
And that sounds a little like a really poor thesis title. Orchestrating the multi-child logistics.
But somebody who's just really good at something, and then you see it and you're inspired by it, and you learn. And the thing that I love is it's especially tempting to feel inadequate or something if you look at a woman who's really good at that and you try to copy it exactly. Like
I need to be that person. Yeah.
But the thing that's fantastic is when you see something like that's inspiring, and then you make it your own. And I think that's
I think you make it your own by not having a weird attitude about it. Like, not being I have to do this because she did it, and everyone will think I'm a loser if I don't do it.
But see, okay, this goes back to my peeve from maybe the 90s. Was it the 90s when Tuscany overswept the world?
It felt like, I think it must have been the early 2000s. Because
was it? Maybe.
I was so anti-Tuscany when we had our shop.
Everybody had fake Tuscany in a
Well, you
could
go to Walmart and get a Tuscany shower curtain.
Or a Tuscany dish drainer.
Yeah, or Tuscany toothbrushes.
Or the
it was like, really? Is that what is the iconic Tuscan dream?
I know.
Is rusty red?
Well, and like subdivisions in Idaho that are named Tuscany.
And those paintings that were all of like cypress trees.
Right. So anyway, the thing is, if we went to Tuscany, I know that both of us would be deeply enamored of Tuscany. But the thing is that we live here, and there's people who try to, like, they travel and then they try to recreate at home something that they saw abroad, but they try to duplicate it exactly, which is always going to be it's always going to be not as good, and it's going to be fakey. The thing that's awesome is when people travel and then they bring back inspiration,
incorporate things,
and then they make it their own, and they make it work in this place.
I have talked friends into trying things that I am still doing, that they tried it and they don't do it. Right? Like, where I'm like, you should try this, it's so good. But they left it, and that's great. They tried it, they moved on, they're like, that's not for me. But
I just mean, like, you see something that another woman is doing well, or that she's talented at, and it inspires you, maybe in the same way Tuscany might inspire you, but then you don't try to just
you're taking it to
pick
your
it up
home,
and then take it out of context and plunk it down elsewhere. It's something where you actually grab it, and then you try to just make it individual for you. And I think when a lot of women are doing that, being inspired by each other and riffing off of what each other are doing, it develops a culture. And I think this is what we were talking about earlier. This is how, like, regional cuisine happens.
Yeah, because if something goes on the hot craze around all the ladies who are like, you did what now? That was a great idea. Like, I love the idea of doing that.
But how much back on the travel thing, how much is that what travel is about going to go see
the best of areas.
Yeah, and who is it that you were just really taking? She's dismantling her cell phone.
Just felt like there was water in the case of my cell phone.
So that's what that weird popping noise is.
I'm sorry about it. Sounds like I got crazy popping my knuckles, but I did not.
Just taking her cell phone case off.
Just doing some housekeeping.
But the point is when you travel, it's not fun to go see, like, well, maybe some people to get into it, suburban America from town to town to town can often
I don't know of anyone who tours suburbias.
But it's like, it's all a bit vanilla, right? But the thing is, well, I'm sure if you were Spanish, it would be very exotic. But the point is, like, when you go somewhere...
Because Spanish people love the most mellow, plain Jane things, and think it's exotic.
I always loved hearing the European take
on
America.
That is true. That is interesting.
Like, one lady was like, it's just like the movies. Everybody has screen doors.
And you're like, wait.
You're like, what?
Why don't you have a screen door?
But the point is, now we're very off topic. What I'm trying to say is that regional culture is what makes it so fun to go visit places. And that is something that the women do, right? That is, it's the women's...
Well, something I want to bring up that C.S. Lewis quote. If you're feeling like lonely, or like, why don't I have friends who do this or whatever, many years ago, well, the C.S. Lewis quote is, those who are going nowhere can have no fellow travelers.
Yeah.
And it's such an appropriate thing to this, is that women, like, there's this false sense that good friendship would be like, you get together with a coffee and you just sort of really understand each other's souls, and you just share, and you
talk about yourselves.
You talk about yourselves and you pour everything out. But the reality is, like, the closest, best friendships that I have with people have all been forged through doing common tasks.
But that's what Lewis said. I don't know if it's the same place, but Lewis says it's about standing shoulder to shoulder.
Yes,
it's not about gazing into each other's eyes.
Yeah, I think. And I do
talking
about marriage and that,
I'm sure it's in the Four Loves or somewhere that he says that.
Is.
But the thing is, like, it is funny when friendships feel like they have to be...
Like it's romance instead of, like, what we need to do. Like, I can't have a real Christian woman friend unless we have just shared the depths with one another.
Rather than being comrades.
You're like, why?
No.
Why not just be brothers in arms and texting each other like, once again, I failed to do whatever. You know, like, because I have lots of friends, and what's funny and what's awesome about a big community is that you end up having friends who... It's like a Venn diagram where with this person, I only share a small margin of what we actually have in common.
Right.
But we can have a full-bodied friendship because of this small margin where it's like, if I have questions about cooking, I would talk to this person.
Yep.
If I tried an exotic recipe, it might be this person. If I am going to talk about yarn and knitting and something, it would be with this person.
Yeah.
If I want to talk bread baking and everything, it's with this person. Like, you have a diverse group of people that's like, oh, who's good at this? I should talk to them about this. Like, who does this?
And I do think that's actually an important point that should be noticed, is that friendship really should be about being comrades.
Yes.
In another calling. And not absolutely. Have it, because how many friendships are so self-absorbed and boring?
The pits. The absolute pits. Because all you can do is share some more about your feelings.
More about my feelings. And it's not like there's no place for that.
Wait. Let's go over my feelings one more time. I'm in the mood to get together. I think that... I think that's just a super important thing for women to stop expecting friends to be people who are filling your every emotional need.
Yeah, or to have it be like a weird romance.
Yes.
It's
the romance of being like obsessing over one another or delighting in someone. It's like, no, honestly.
Or kind of like, I want to analyze your soul.
Yes,
I apart your soul.
I prefer my friendships to be sort of like the kind of conversations you would have with a good running partner, where you're both so busy exerting yourselves. You're both so busy that you can enjoy things together, you enjoy the work together, but you're not, it's a very different situation than just talking just to talk.
Yeah.
You're like, we're working, we're encouraging one another, we're coming along, we're enjoying one another's victories of like,
it's not to say that there's no place for ever helping friends through hard times, emotional hard times they're dealing with. That's all good.
Well, I believe, I know what you're saying and I agree with that. That's true. I also think that on the whole, Christian women fail in the area of thinking that that's what it's all about. Not in the area of thinking you should never help a friend through a hard time.
No, I think our culture errs on the side of let's all splash around in our feelings and talk about them some more.
Being bizarrely like, so I had back when I was 18 at the Crisis Pregnancy Center volunteering. That's what I was doing, volunteering at the Crisis Pregnancy Center, not
not visiting.
Just clarifying that, and I was the youngest by a long shot, and I was also not married, and most of the rest of them were, and I just kept being horrified by things that happened. Anyways, but one of them was really comic. A woman was like, I'm so sorry that you couldn't come with us on our retreat this weekend. And I was like, oh, it's fine. I didn't make it. And she said, no, it was just amazing. We were just able to just sit around and really share about how our husbands were not meeting our needs. And here I am, 18, unmarried, unequipped to rebuke at the moment, knowing it would have gone nowhere good had I rebuked. But all the same, looking for all the world like, actually, I'm just tying everything together. That Woodhouse quote that I ran into upon Facebook. Somebody didn't cite it. They just said Woodhouse, but it said, he wore the expression of a man who had been looking for the leak in life's gas pipes with a lighted candle. And that was me. It was me, like, you did what now? Like, it never occurred to me that would be the way we would openly talk. Like we were able
to unpack my sin closet.
Oh, the best thing that I did, we were able to just sit around and just gossip hardcore and slander some people.
Disrespect our husbands.
Disrespecting.
Gossip.
So good.
Admire each other's sins.
Yeah, really.
Put them away back in their treasured places.
Yeah, honor one another for having told about our sins but not confessed them. It was like, this is not how Christian women are supposed to be handling things. But I think if you were feeling really lonely, like, here's some actual super practical tips. If you're feeling really lonely, or like you know some Christian women, but you don't know how to start a friendship with people, I think one of the best things you can do is get someone to do something with you, like to work on something together, to do I have a number of different sets of friends for different things. That's like, when we work on this, like I had a group of friends that we started a Slack group. Slack is like a workforce thing. It's like basically group texting in an app.
Yeah.
But we started it where it was just a reading. When it first started, it was just a reading challenge. Like, we all say what book we're going to read that month. You pick your own. It was like a book group, but you pick your own book and say what you're going to read and keep each other posted. And it was a great way to get to know people and have like, and without the weird pressure of being like, would you like to be one of my closest friends? Like, it was like, you can let that kind of thing happen naturally from working hard together.
And also, I think it's also about deciding to challenge yourself to get better at your job. You know, it's like you've got all of these things to do every day. Wouldn't it be nice to get good at them? And then look around and think, what resources do I have? Who can I ask? Who could teach me about this? Where could I learn about that? Who knows how to reupholster their own furniture? I need to talk to her. And then just ask, because lots of times that is a huge...
lots of times people are thrilled to do it.
Yeah.
They're like, yes, I would love to teach you how to make bread, or how to... And I've had people come over to teach them how to make bread or how to do knitting or various things. A lot of times people just are insecure at starting up on something. Like, it just feels...
Yeah, but I do think that the power of a community of women who are all shoulder to shoulder dedicated to getting better at this thing is an incredibly powerful force. And I think
it makes in an ideal world, we're not probably perfect at this, but there are women in our community who for various reasons can't be at home, like that they would love to but cannot, hard providences or things where they have to work full time, but they still really value what's going on in the home. But having a community of women who are dedicated to their homes is a far better support to that woman if they're being really faithful. If the women are being faithful and not competitive and not hideous.
And that's the other thing I think we should say is, it seems like one of the places women go off the rails about this is where they stop being open-handed, and they want to be known as the person who knows how to knit. They don't want other people and they don't
to
know how to knit. And so then they get a little bit let me kind of throw my elbows a little bit.
I've always thought an incredibly convicting quote is, I think it was Thomas Watson. I just remember writing it in a commonplace book, probably in high school. But it was about the crown of Christ. And it was saying, like, it was basically about how you ought to be happy when other Christians excel. And it was basically saying, how would one jewel in Christ's crown, like, if your whole purpose is glorifying Christ, then why would you ever resent one that shines brighter?
Yeah.
Like, if you're like, I'm pouring my whole life into glorifying God and Christ, so when someone's doing a more brilliant job of it right next to me, it's actually accomplishing the purpose I'm hoping for. And that instead of it being like you're saying, but I wanted to be the brightest jewel of the bread baking crowd that will glorify God.
And this was going to be my territory. I wanted to be known as the person who makes a really good baby carrot casserole at the potluck.
Wow. A baby carrot casserole. Is there? I want to Google this out.
No,
Pinterest.
Know where that came from.
Show me a baby carrot casserole.
Let me tell you where that came from. The darkest recesses of my potluck experience. I remember going down that line, and you look at, sometimes at potlucks, don't you do this? You walk down and you're like,
I think, how is it? This is normal.
This must be your favorite thing that you brought.
Well,
or
knowing
something.
what I've taken to potlucks occasionally, I don't think so. Because
but this was it was a casserole dish with carrots.
Oh my word, it's coming up. Baby carrot casserole.
No, really?
recipes.
Is it a thing? Yeah.
Oh, I think this thing may have a cornflake on it. Oh, this is dark.
But you know how women want to be known for, this is my trademark.
Yeah.
I'm the one who makes a lemon meringue pie.
It's not amazing. A cornflake. It's not.
What is it?
But it is. This has got to be.
I told you.
The most underwhelming. Oh. Oh my word. And such an ugly picture. All right. Here we go, guys. 2 pounds baby carrots, 1 cup chopped onion, 1 cup mayo.
No.
Yes. 1 cup grated cheddar, half cup of sugar.
What?
Yeah. 10 buttery round crackers, crushed.
I'm surprised.
Mayo. It's like a hot dip. It's like a hot cheese dip.
So weird. Well, but anyway.
Well, now we know.
Now we know about that.
Now we know that exists.
And it just came forth from my memories of long ago.
Suppressed baby carrot casserole feelings.
Yeah. And then I just remember seeing that and being like, really? This was worth a repeat, was it? But anyway, who knows? Maybe it's incredibly delicious. But I'm just saying, like, women tend to I wanted to be the gardener. I wanted to be the person who
this
has
is somehow important
house.
to my identity. And the reality is, I think the heart of that, backing up further, these are like keys to being a really functional, happy part of a Christian women's community.
Yeah.
Backing up past that is the desire to work hard your whole life. Because you don't get to stop. You don't get to just ride the glory of your cake that you made once for forever.
Yeah.
Like, and I have things like that I thought,
in the world is making it, you might have to try another recipe.
Well, maybe you're going to have to try harder to surprise and bless people with the food that you have made.
Right, and so actually being open-handed with other women like that, I think actually results in all the women thriving and stepping up and getting better. And that is such a persuasive, powerful force for the gospel.
In a town, in everywhere, in like children growing up in that kind of community. It's an amazing thing to have these women. I guess I was seeing about this because I was talking to my husband about the professional field. We're a small town. And I was like, what's amazing is how many very well qualified women we have who are not in the actual business field. And I was like, that's a really... Like they're well qualified to do big work.
Eminently employable women.
Yes, and they're doing it. They're throwing all of their talent and their ingenuity and their ideas and their creativity into building their homes and their families and their culture.
Which is building culture. It's broader than just your own little home. It really is a powerful thing.
And it's beautiful because I love how many, I guess it's just all these older, a lot of them feel like old, quaint arts, but they're things, there are just things that I feel like I'm tapping into it. You mentioned your peeve from the 90s, and this is probably one of my peeves from about that far back. Because I knit. If you knit a pair of socks, that's like way too many hours. Right?
Okay.
And then people in the knitting world are hilarious nincompoops about this kind of thing because they're like, well, plus I'm a skilled laborer. Like, this is not a minimum wage job. This is like, because this took me a long time to develop this much skill. Right? So now I should not be
50 hours.
Right. And then people, and people get all huffy because people always say, you should knit me a pair of those socks or you should knit me. So because it is often talked about in terms of a transaction of some kind. So you say you're going to make a really rad pair of socks for yourself. You're probably going to spend at least 20, probably between $20 and $30 on the yarn for a pair of socks for yourself.
Yeah.
You could do it cheaper, but they would not be as rad. Like there are less expensive yarns. So you start with that, and then you add your hours. Mm-hmm. And at the end of that, you have a pair of socks that is in no way worth itself. Like this is not a monetary exchange.
No.
Like, we don't do this to save money. We don't do this. This is not that. So what people do is they're like, well, I'm a skilled laborer. So that work, like this pair of socks, is actually worth $250. And someone ought to be willing to pay for this, or they're a total hypocrite and a coward. This is how it escalates very quickly. But the thing that I think is that, no, that's why everyone used to have to knit. Like, that's not why. It's not that this is worth that much. Everyone had to do it because it was never worth that much. And then the thing is that now, and this is the point that I was bringing into the discussion we were just having, is that now the only way you can get yourself a pair of hand knit socks is do it yourself or have someone who loves you do it for you, because it's probably not worth it to most people to pay what they're worth in time and labor. But in terms of something that's complete, you know, those, what is it, Visa, the priceless, that whole thing. In terms of what it's actually worth in the life of people, what does it mean to your child when someone who has other things they could be doing invested time in doing this for them? Or when you could have bought a thing at Baskin Robbins for their birthday, but this time you made them something really special, or you did those things. The investments like that are very disproportionate in how they affect people. Growing up. How they affect.
As long as they don't come with a lot of emotional guilt tripping.
Baggage is the worst. But that's the same with helping other women, so long as you're not being a weird, so long as you're all just being really open-handed and like that you think to yourself, I want to glorify God by making wonderful meals for my family and blessing the people around me. And also, I would be just as pleased if my neighbor and friend glorified him all the more by being much better at it than me.
But it's that Ronald Reagan quote of, there's no limit to what you can accomplish.
No end to what you can accomplish.
If you don't care who gets the credit.
And which is just a life slogan for everyone. Back in the day with Becca and I, we had this little kitchen on 1017 East Street, as I recall. And we were roller skating in the kitchen. I'm 4 years younger than Becca, so at the age where I was just learning to roller skate, I was probably like 6 and you were 10 or something. And she was like, Rachel, this is how you turn. And you're like, you know, put your feet in the V. So you swirl around to the outside. And I did it. And I think it was the first time I ever successfully did that.
Oh, yeah, I remember this,
And then Mom says, Rachel, aren't you so glad you have an older sister who can teach you to do things like that? And I said, nope. I did it all by myself.
Exactly.
And what I'm saying is, don't let that spirit sneak in to your sharing with other women.
I don't want to tell anybody that I learned this from a friend. I want to act like
this was just my own sheer brilliance, or I'm going to hide it from them that this is actually a really simple method that really, because a lot of stuff is like that. Like it is. Once you get through it, you're actually, this is very doable.
I know.
And most of us could do it.
It's true. So that's good.
That's our plug.
So recommend. I have a recommend because you mentioned this earlier. This is a recommend that I should take to heart myself. Holders? No, I need to obey my own recommend here.
Okay.
Because I do make my students do it, and
the Commonplace book?
Yeah, the Commonplace book.
Fun.
It's actually a really
I love it.
It's a great thing to do, and I actually, when I went through Logos and then when I went through NSA, it was not a thing yet. I think when you did, you had to keep a Commonplace book, which is just like get a blank book, and actually the sort of medieval Commonplace book was not really this, but so it's become its own sort of thing now. But just write things down that are striking to you, like
say like commonplace.
Yeah, like quotes, things that you might. It's basically like.
What's funny is that when I started Commonplace, I haven't used one in a long time, and it's a good idea. I should get back to it. But when I started it in high school, I still remember tons of the quotes that I wrote down in high school.
Yeah. Yeah,
like I was because when you're writing them, and I did it. I think I categorized them, so I had a cute journal basically, and I used paper clips on the sides to like make sections.
Okay.
And so I had like Bible quotes, and then I had like pop culture quotes, and I had like great literature quotes, and then I had a few that was like on feminism or on where I just sort of had, and then I had an index in the back.
That was taking it to the next level. That's great.
I think we were supposed to. So you were. I don't think that was just my own sheer wit, but I think you're supposed to.
I think I'm going to make my students do it more like that next year.
You should, but then we would take a minute to. We'd have to read something from our Commonplace book aloud, and oftentimes everybody would enjoy the same thing. So people would be writing it down, like, "Oh, that's a good one." But I still remember lots of quotes just because because they struck me in high school, and then I wrote them down in my commonplace book, like Charles de Gaulle saying, "The graveyards are full of indispensable people."
Yeah, I mean it's actually
like,
just
so
great.
like how long ago was I in high school?
And you remember it.
A very long time ago.
know.
Yeah.
So keeping a commonplace book is a great idea. It's different than a journal because it's more stuff that you just want to remember, like quotes
Also,
to remember
I have a
later.
Nate quote. I have 2 Nate quotes. So it's when I was in high school, and now that Nate's a well-known author.
Yeah,
But the
think of
quotes
it.
that I have from him were, "Grapes are God's jelly beans." And someone stood out like spats at an Indiana picnic. It's very Woodhouse-ish.
Well, my kids have started, this is so evil of them, I need to have access to it. They've started a Google Doc amongst themselves that they can all contribute to that is just commonplace quotes
from you,
me.
right? Yeah, I remember. They told me that. They were pulling up some of them.
They pull them out, and they'll be like standing around, and I'll haul off.
Becca's a great innovators of the English language.
And so I'll just pop off with something, and one of them whips out their phones and is like, ha, 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 and they
put
stick
that
it in
on the Google Doc.
I have not actually gone and looked at this Google Doc, but I do call my children weird names, so I think those make it in.
Well, our mom always innovated with nicknames,
Yeah.
but we've noticed mom's what is the
Her
word I'm looking
talents
for?
in that direction?
Her talents, no, that's not what I was going to say. The theme that runs throughout is food. The
Oh,
nicknames.
maybe.
Because there's sport cake or turkey noodle.
I know. And I'll just pop off with whatever comes to hand. So I'll be like, hey there, Pop-Tart. And
yeah.
it's just, who knows what might come out.
Do you
I
have
don't
lots
know.
of nicknames for your kids? We have, in what feels sometimes like far too many.
Yeah, I know.
Like where you refer to someone as Pop-Tots, and you saying Pop-Tart made me think of Pop-Tots was Chloe for a long time. But when I use one of those on someone else and they're all like, I'm not Pop-Tots or whatever, you're like, well, anyone can be a Pop-Tots. Let me clarify.
That's good. Well, look, we're way over time again. Look
Are
at
we?
Well, it's about
No,
the
we're
same.
not.
It's the same amount
We're
of
a
overtime.
day late and a minute too long.
I know.
Not a day late. Well, 3 days late.
Basically.
But we'll be on time when we post it.
If this comes out in a minute,
Well,
then
have all of you have a wonderful
have a
time.
luscious week.
Yeah, rest
All
of
right.
it. All right. Goodbye.
Bye.
Till next time.